What's very important is that we are seeing a second generation of MarTech solutions. So I think it's the golden age of marketing that's coming up now. The digital twin is now able to predict what is the next best action in a journey. I think from an M&A perspective, I think it's a great time for MarTech companies to look at acquisitions and look at roll-ups. It's not just enough being profitable. Every SaaS company should be thinking, how do I create a profit profits monopoly?
Hello, and welcome to the next installment of SaaS SCIONS series, brought to you by AWS India and Business Insider. This series brings together CEOs, co-founders of leading India-based independent software vendors for one-to-one conversations, focusing on their growth journey to maturity, with the aim to share key learnings to thousands of enterprises, ISVs, and startups in India. My name is Tim Barnes. I'm the general manager of the AdTech and MarTech vertical at AWS. And today we are joined by Rajesh Jain, founder and managing director of Netcore Cloud, a global MarTech company that helps B2C brands create amazing digital experiences with a range of products that help in acquisition, engagement, and retention. Welcome, Mr. Jain. How are you today?
Thank you very much for having me, Tim. Great to see you.
Yeah, well, I'd love to start off with some news I just heard about, which is you're a newly minted author. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Indeed. So my book, Startup to Proficon, got published just under 2 months ago. And Proficon is probably a new word for lots of people. So I use it to describe a company which is private, which is bootstrapped, which is profitable and highly valuable. So as it turns out, I've done 2 Proficons in my life as an entrepreneur and my 30 years as an entrepreneur. And the book has learnings from me and many others on how to build and scale profitable businesses to at least 100 million plus in value.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to getting a copy. Maybe you can send me one, or you could buy one on Amazon.com, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Shameless plug. So let's just get started. I'd love for our audience members to know a little bit about the genesis of Netcore, what led to its birth, and how your customer MarTech industry evolved over the first 3 to 5 years of the company.
So Netcore is 25 years old, but the real growth has been in the last, I'd say, about 10 to 15 years. So Netcore came about, and it was a very different business when I started. It came out after my first success, India World. I'd built India's first internet portals, 95 to 99. Then I sold that business for $115 million. Again, there was no external capital. And in today's world, since everyone counts multiples on revenue, I got 166x multiple on the revenue that we had at that time. So Netcore in its early years, first 10 years, did lots of small different things, and we didn't grow much. And Netcore's growth journey really started in 2007 and 8. And we started with email and SMS services, also a platform for brands to connect with their customers. In 2014-15, we expanded to MarTech, so customer engagement. And then we've added a few companies through acquisitions in the last few years, which expanded our product portfolio to support personalization, nudges, inside channels, and a big acquisition last year of Unboxed, which brought in search and product discovery into our platform. So today it's a full stack platform for B2C companies. We are 100 million plus in revenue and a global company.
Well, congratulations on your early success. I guess early is a bit of a misnomer, being you've been around for 25 years, but it's a great growth story. Netcore is one of the few SaaS companies in India that was born before cloud became mainstream. How have you used that edge to deliver innovations for your customers?
So cloud is very, very important for us because A, we are serving global companies. Second is that our customers get a lot of data. So on the SDK that goes into the apps, on the JavaScript that goes onto websites, there's a lot of data being collected about customer engagement. All of this comes into the AWS cloud that we have, and we deployed, for like I said, in multiple geos with AWS. And we are using a wide variety of services, which really has helped us scale the business. Till about 2019, we were pretty much managing things ourselves. And then last few years, I think the move to AWS has really helped us grow with our customers, the hyper growth that's happened. And the growth really has come from two elements. One is the multiple products that we've added in the last 4 to 5 years. And second is the geographical expansion. We've grown from India to serve customers in lots of emerging markets, then Europe and the US. And I think having the AWS platform has been tremendously helpful for us in meeting all the diverse requirements for local data storage. And of course, most important, scalability and availability, 24/7 availability. And it's been tremendous. I don't think we could have scaled if we had tried to do this on our own.
What do you expect marketers to look forward to in the future as a tech provider?
So I think if you look at how marketing really has been changing in the last few years, and I do a lot of writing on my blog, eponymous with my name, rajeshjain.com. I think what's very important is that we are seeing a second generation of MarTech solutions. The first generation was all about point solutions. So different marketers basically put in different tools which were there, had them connected up together. There was a lot of cost of integration, data gets siloed. It's very difficult for AI to really work because your data is not all available. And what MarTech 2.0, which is really the focus that Netcore does, is that it really helps in terms of the full stack, what we call uni-stack, and the multiple channels which are there, uni-channel, what we call. So essentially what's happening here is that the end customer, now interacts with a brand on probably 4, 5, 7 channels. And what marketers really want is to ensure that the customer experience is omni-channel and personalized. Now, personalization necessitates that all of the data comes together into a sort of customer data platform. The engagement becomes real time. And you've got to show the right products to the right customers at the right time, and of course, on the right channel. And this has been the big shift that's happening, because especially post-pandemic, we've seen tremendous growth in the use of digital. But the key driver there really is still how do I as a marketer create customized experiences? And one of the big drivers for that is the shift which I see happening from purely new customer acquisition to building deeper and deeper relationships with existing customers. Because the CAC on new customers has been rising very, very rapidly. And for marketers, it's very important to differentiate by building these deep relationships with the customers they already have. And that, I think, is the key to building profitable businesses, which also is becoming a big driver because the era of easy money is over for a lot of brands. And therefore, the mindset really becomes on how do I use my existing customers, how do I deliver great experiences for them, and how do I use these relationships to grow rapidly, profitably.
So diving a little deeper on that, what are your thoughts on customer experience, and specifically on things like real-time customer experience? And how are you taking technology advances to reach customers in a more relevant and real-time manner?
Yeah, great question, Tim. I think so. There are two aspects to this. One is what I just spoke about, the element of personalization, and that comes in from getting all of the data together across all the touch points that customers have. But there's a very important second angle which is there. It's what I call digital twins. Now, the idea of a digital twin has been around in manufacturing and in construction for a long time. We have read about GE having digital twins for all of its engines, the jet engines. Now, how can we apply that same idea in the world of marketing? So every customer has a journey. I mean, they have a journey. They're going through the products on the website or the app, and they're looking at messages which are being sent, the push messages which are being sent. Now, by getting all of the data together in one place and applying AI, it's possible now for marketers to create a digital twin, sort of a replica of every customer, which is a few steps ahead of the real customer. It's almost like in a game of chess with a machine. Okay, the machine is always a few steps ahead, working through the trees, the move trees which are there. Now imagine if we can apply the same idea of a digital twin in marketing. Now the advantage here becomes that it becomes possible for the AI engines to actually calculate what is the next best action for every customer. In a way, it's the exact equivalent of what we see today in ChatGPT, where the AI engine is basically guessing or predicting the next word in a sentence. So there's a large language model which is helping ChatGPT do that. Now imagine if we can think of brands having a large customer model, an LCM, which is the equivalent of an LLM, and the digital twin is now able to predict what is the next best action in a journey. And this is really what I see as the future of marketing. So it goes beyond just sending out messages, thinking beyond purely growth, engagement, and retention, and now thinking of the lifetime value of a customer. How do I figure out who my best customers are? How do I know the best customer genome? And especially for those customers, getting the idea of the digital twin and then replicating that customer journey for all the other customers, the long tail, helping them in their journey towards becoming best customers. And I think this is sort of the golden era of MarTech that's coming up because of the compute power that's available, because of the cloud, because of the AI engines which are available. And this is not just about using ChatGPT or open engines. It's about the company's own data. It's about customer data being applied across the entire segment of customers which a brand has, the large customer models, and manifesting itself in a digital twin which helps drive the next best action. So I think that's the future. That's going to dictate the customer experiences which we are seeing, highly personalized and very rewarding for brands, because that's what's going to drive profitability going forward for brands.
Well, I don't think we can get through an interview without talking about Gen AI, and which has taken the world by storm. And you mentioned some of the use cases, and I love your description of LCM. What other use cases would you see? Let's dive a little bit deeper into the use of generative AI and large language models and large customer models. You mentioned a use case around next best action. What other use cases do you see? And further, what sort of challenges do you see that might present for marketers in the future?
I think the simplest way to think about AI is really data plus compute. So the computing power today is available in clouds like AWS, massive computing power available. But that by itself is not enough. What customers really need is to get the data in place. Now, so the first step really is to think the easy wins, I think, for brands are really about being able to figure out the subject line of the emails that are being sent. So look through all the emails which have been sent, which customers should get 50% off, which customers should get buy one, get one free, what time should a mail be sent out or a message be sent out, which is the best channel that a customer should be sent a message out. Can I now take this one step further and do hyper-personalization? So depending on what links an individual has clicked on, a customer has clicked on, I can learn about category affinities. Through something like through a platform like Unboxed, we can actually do visual search. The customer can basically take a photo of herself and say that, or another object and say that, look, I want products like these, which are there. So search the database and give me items like this. So there's a lot of interesting aspects, I think, which are available now, where earlier you would have very static AI models. Okay, you had to make them rules-based. There was very limited sort of learnability. I think now you have the ability to learn in real time. So now I can come to a website based on the action that I'm doing. I can have a personalized boutique being created for me on the fly on the website. So another big problem area which we are working to solve for marketers, especially merchandisers, is AI-based catalog enrichment. So one of the search typically that you see on websites. And of course, Amazon.com is the gold standard in terms of the search results and recommendations. But a lot of marketers basically are faced with the problem that, okay, they have a typical product. They are able to, merchandisers can maybe write 8 to 10 attributes of that. Now, imagine if an AI engine can come in and say, here are 30, 40 more attributes for the product. Now, that really transforms the search results. And the magic happens when we are able to combine the catalog data, the enriched catalog data, with the customer data, the data that's being gathered from all sorts of different interactions which are happening. And then you let the large customer model work its magic. So when I wake up in the morning, there is the perfect product at the perfect price point on the right channel for me being available, which then nudges me along on my customer journey. I think this is sort of the holy grail, as it were, the utopia for marketers. And data is going to make that available. I think the language models, of course, will need to be fine-tuned and so on, and there'll probably need to be choices between language models. But for marketers, it's really the key focus needs to be, how do I get all of my data together so that the generative AI engines can work their magic? And this is really the biggest challenge that we face, because in many companies, what I see is that data is just siloed in so many different places. Offline data, online data across multiple MarTech apps. If this can change, I think it's going to really, really transform e-commerce and digital businesses going forward.
So you brought up an interesting challenge in your description of using large language models. And one of the challenges I see is, how do we separate out customers, one of your customers' specific customer data from another customer's consumer data? And how do you preserve privacy and also ownership of that data when you process or create these large language models?
So we don't mix customer data because we are sort of the guardians of their data. Each data set is independent. So there's no mixing of customer data that happens. What we do suggest to customers is that they need to get all of their data together in one place. And in most brands today, this is the big problem because they use maybe 5, 7 different MarTech platforms. And this is just for online businesses. They use multiple platforms. The data gets siloed. You've got to write complex integration scripts, programs to basically start getting the data together. So that's a big, big challenge. The complexity increases for hybrid businesses where you're doing online and offline. How do I know that a best customer of mine just walked into my store? I will only know when that person reaches the checkout counter and probably gives a phone number or a loyalty card. But imagine if you could know when a best customer walks into a store. If you could know that, you could have your best salesperson work with that customer, provide the best possible experiences. So these are all frictions that are there in a customer journey. So here, in fact, the friction would really be, how do I take anonymous customers, whether it's in a store or online, and be able to make them known? Because then I can apply a lot of other knowledge about other customers that I have in furthering this individual on their customer journey. So I think the real power of AI, data, MarTech 2.0 is about essentially removing the frictions that are there in a customer journey. And I'll take a minute, Tim, to just outline key frictions, I think, because this is where marketers can benefit tremendously. So in the top of the funnel, the friction really what we spoke about, anonymous to known. How do I bridge this identity gap? Then the middle of the funnel, it's really what I call attention recession. And the solution to that can be inbox commerce. Can we move the conversion funnel from the website and app right into the inbox with technologies like AMP for email, with so email shops, WhatsApp shops? All of this can again multiply the conversions that are there for brands. Then the third big friction really happens is what I call red journeys. So the people come to the website and the app, and then only about 3% actually buy something. What if we could double that? How can we create green journeys? That's where the idea we spoke about earlier, the large customer model, digital twins start to come in. Then below the funnel, you have the problem of dormancy and churn. How can we do reactivation as an alternative to reacquisition, where one has to compete with other brands acquiring that same customer again? And then above the funnel, for new customers, how can I reduce the waste that happens because of reacquisition and wrong acquisition? And I think solving these 5 frictions is really about, is probably the biggest challenge that is there for marketers. I think the folly, I think, which marketers have done is not spent enough time and effort on existing customers. I think if they can do that, they can become what I call a profit-poly, could build a profits monopoly in the business. So this is directionally where I see marketing heading. I think AI is going to be the center of all of this because it's really processing data. I think, and marketers can get a huge advantage by deploying some of these technologies very quickly.
So let's switch gears a little bit. We talked a lot about your customers and their use of data to reach their consumers. Let's talk about the consumer themselves a little bit. As we know, regulatory changes, for example, privacy laws, which can often vary greatly from region to different countries, have a direct impact on the MarTech space. How do you manage data governance and consent management for your customers and their consumers today?
Our job is actually quite easy because our customers, the marketers and the brands do that because we just work on the data that they have. Where I think the real opportunity is for marketers to move away from third-party data to thinking not just first-party data, but also zero-party data. I think there's an interesting idea that I've talked with many marketers about. It's what I call atomic rewards. How can you incentivize customers to give consent and information about themselves? A lot of us are actually willing to share information. Marketers do not need to stalk us. But give us an incentive. Give us some loyalty points. Give us some what I call micro incentives, atomic rewards. But very few are actually doing that. If I refer someone, if I refer a friend of mine, give me a nice incentive to make that happen. If I tell you my name, age, gender, give me something which rewards me. And the zero-party data, I think, is really going to be the transformation in the data revolution going forward because it's the best and most authentic data that you can get. We don't need to worry about privacy out there. We don't need to worry about complex data regulations or consent. And I think that's the shift that needs to happen. Move away from third party to first party, and then from first party to zero party.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The value exchange is a key part of the communication with consumers. And yet we still face these increased regulatory challenges that happen to be, as I mentioned, different by country or even region within a country. What would you want to put in front of the table of regulators collectively to help support your business or the industry in general that would help make sure that you can continue along your journey?
I think what regulators really need to do is to let entrepreneurs be. I think the value exchange that we just discussed, I think, is the best way for brands and marketers to build a healthier relationship between them. I think every regulation that comes in increases the cost of doing business, which eventually is borne by the customers themselves. So if I have to start localizing data, if I've got to keep multiple copies of it, if I've got to store it for 3 years, 6 years or longer, it increases the costs of doing business for everyone. And I think what regulators need to do is to ensure that entrepreneurs, businesses are given a free hand in terms of managing data. Because let's face it, we are all customers of many brands. If we don't get good experiences, we are not being forced to deal with a brand. If brands stalk us, if they call us at odd times, if they message us, if they send us the same message on 5 channels, we're going to walk away from them. We're going to opt out. We're going to unsubscribe. We're going to move away. The checks and balances are built in the customer relationship. No brand can communicate with a customer today without their opt-in, without their consent. That's already there. But by adding in layers which really make it very hard for businesses or make it mandatory for business to spend a lot more money, I don't think that's the right approach. I think brands and customers, we've done it for a long time. Okay, if we don't like products, we don't like services, we just switch brands. And that's, I think, the best message to brands who don't follow these guidelines.
Vote with your feet. So you've mentioned a couple of times your recent acquisition of Unboxed, and I'm curious how this fits into your overall business strategy.
Yeah, so Netcore's been about customer engagement and the communication channels. Now, at the end of the day, what we realized is that the showing the right product to the end customer is having the right product information. You need the catalog, you need the product catalog, you need the enrichment which goes in there. So Unboxed was a natural fit because it helps us bring together in a very unique manner. We are one of the few companies which can do this globally now. Customer data and catalog data. At the end of the day, you got to match the right product to the right customer. And you cannot do that if your product data is not high quality. And Unboxed, with its ability to enrich catalogs, with its ability to bring in visual search, do recommendations, and do personalization, I think was a very good fit for us. The second thing that Unboxed helps us is with expansion in the US. Netcore has in the past grown from India to many of the emerging markets. Unboxed was very strong in US, UK, and Australia, and it's a very good complement. Helps us do the cross-sell very well, and I think that's what we're going to see more of going forward. Product discovery and search combined with engagement and communications, all of it on a single platform.
So inclusive of your acquisition of Unboxed, we're seeing a lot of merger activity across really all of MarTech and AdTech. What additional trends do you see, and how can the customers of Business Insider and AWS capitalize on these trends to create value for their customers?
The first is to have a very clear idea of what the future looks like. Okay, a good understanding of what all these trends are going, where are they leading up to. And according to me, the most important trend is for not just brands, but also MarTech vendors to be profitable. Okay, because capital is not easy to come by now, especially for companies who've got used to raising multiple rounds of capital. So I think from an M&A perspective, I think it's a great time for MarTech companies to look at acquisitions and look at roll-ups. And that helps one other reason, because marketers also don't want to deal with multiple point solutions. They want to see unified stacks, okay, because it just saves them a lot of time and effort. I think the second thing is that there is also the investments required for some of the new technologies like AI and what we talked about earlier, digital twins, are going to be significant. It's very difficult for some of the smaller companies now to invest in some of these fundamental building blocks. I mean, AI can be expensive in the near term, okay, as the scale comes in, but it's great value to brands. So I think that's the second trend which we are going to see, that there will be more consolidation because the costs are not going to be easy to bear for some smaller companies. And the third trend which I'm seeing is the sort of combination of AdTech and MarTech. At the end of the day, over the last probably 20 years, we have seen a huge growth in AdTech. About 80% of marketing budgets are spent on new customer acquisition and retargeting of existing customers. But I think as MarTech starts to show its real value of building deep relationships, as has been said, the best way to build a profitable business is to get your existing customers back and get them to get their friends and family. It's not about just acquiring customers sometimes into a leaky bucket. So I think you can use a lot of the MarTech data to now redefine the type of customers that you acquire. So spend more on building deep relationships with your existing customers, optimize the spends that are happening on the acquisition side, because there's a lot of waste out there. And that's the secret really for building profitable businesses. So a combination of, I think we're going to see a lot of acquisition roll-ups, increased spends on AI, of course, going forward, and clouds. And the third is MarTech becoming an equal partner to AdTech rather than the sort of skewed relationship that we've seen. So I think it's the golden age of marketing that's coming up now, especially for MarTech companies.
And let's close on that. You mentioned profitability, and it's without question, India has emerged as the SaaS factory of the world, and some estimates have expected growth, almost 3 times over the next 4 years. Yet profitability for SaaS unicorns is a rare feat. What advice would you give the nearly 3,000 SaaS companies across all industries in India as they look to become unicorns and eventually profitable in years to come?
I'd say the number one thing is to shift from being investor focused to customer focused. I think this is the key. I think there is no shortcut to building a sustainable and enduring great business other than being profitable. You cannot rely on a continuous stream of investor money. And for that, I think the focus has to shift from looking at investors or investors wanting just higher rounds, higher valuations, and shift the mindset to seeing what customers want, what the brands really or the marketers want. And I think if SaaS companies can do that, and it applies now, and I think every industry, whether you're a B2C marketer or a B2B marketer, I think profitability is really at the center of every business now. It should have been like that, but I think we sort of deviated from this norm for a few years. And I think I'm glad it's back. I think what the key, I think, for SaaS companies is to figure out what is the optimal way to get exponential, forever profitable growth. Because at the end of the day, it's not just enough being profitable. Every SaaS company should be thinking, how do I create a profit-poly, a profits monopoly? Because every industry has a finite pool of profits. I mean, we've seen the most successful companies in the world do that. Google did it in search. Amazon's doing it very well in many online retail categories. Microsoft's done it for many years in Windows and search. And I think the key is really how do you build a defensible moat, which leads to a profits monopoly. So for SaaS companies, it's about finding that blue ocean in the red ocean, which can drive them towards profitability, which is defensible, and which then gets them the sort of profits flywheel to invest in adjacent areas, do acquisitions, and keep growing. If companies can do that, I think they're well on their way to building an enduring great business.
Well, Rajesh, it's indeed been a pleasure, and thank you so much for your insights. And on behalf of SaaScience, AWS, and Business Insider, I'd like to thank you and Netcore Cloud for participating today, and look forward to seeing your growth in the future.
Thank you very much, Tim.